Hello, happy Saturday. I think this takes a minute. I'm gonna wait, and it looks like there is about a lot of people online right now. So I'm gonna give it a minute and just see who comes on. There we go. Happy Saturday. I just got off an amazing training. Today is thunderstormy. You might hear some thunder. It's raining. It's kind of gloomy and doomy. So it was a perfect day to have training through our coaching program. It was absolutely awesome, and it just gave me lots to think about. So I'm going to come on and share a few things because I know before our webinar, I necessarily wasn't feeling the best. So what he really wanted to instill is right now really is a great time. Right now, God is giving us time with our families and a time to just slow down and be with the people we love. So you can really look at it that way, that God really put this in place to make us all slow down because life has been crazy. So I want to talk about the story you're telling yourself through all of this. Are you telling yourself the world's going to end? There's doom and gloom. I mean, there is so much negative stuff. My phone is constantly dinging. Like, I don't look at it. I honestly have not. Our TV has not been on. We watched a couple of comedy movies. But, really, we're staying pretty low key. We're staying in. And focusing on how to get through this because I lived through the last recession. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to do this. The first is figure out what is holding you back. We all have greatness in us. And, right now, especially if you're not working, to really sit back and think, if there's what you can be doing in a time like this, if you're at one of the non-essential jobs. So, when your kids are out of school, are you waiting for when your spouse will support you? Are you waiting to feel better? Are you waiting until your kids get married? Are you waiting until you put your 35 years into a job you hate? So many times we wait for something to happen. And I was just waiting. I was one of those just waiting. I don't even know what I was waiting for. I was waiting to be not scared one day, probably. And, that's never going to happen. So, or just something to give us permission. What it really has to do with is self-doubt. And I've really had, now going through this coaching, I've figured out I really have had self-doubt. And so many people have self-doubt. I think it's just a thing that is instilled from generations past. It might not even be us, but it's just traditionally passed on. People have self-doubt. And there's really inner feelings and inner demons almost reminding us that we should play it safe. Because what do most people do? Play it safe. Most people have jobs that's super safe, even though I've always had an entrepreneur mindset. When I was very young, I could not work for somebody. So, some people look at jobs as a risk because there's not really any guarantee. Some people look at entrepreneurship as risk. So they're both risky. But I guess I've taken the road and played it safe in real estate for 20 years. And now wanting to change. So if you're wanting to change, and yes, I have notes. So if you're wanting to change and desire more than just self-doubt and have something great in you to share, everyone has a message, everyone has something that brings them joy. Really start talking to your inner self. Whatever you want to make, whether you want to make $100,000, $1 million. When I first started on real estate, I thought, oh my gosh, if I could just make $1,000, that would be awesome. Obviously, that was over 20 years ago. But every year I've just increased my goal. So yeah, whether you want to make 100,000 or $1 million, what does your inner self say? Like, if you throw a number out there, what does your inner self say? Is it comfortable? Is it uncomfortable? So does part of your inner self say you can't quit your job? You don't know how. Like, I'd love to make $1 million. We'd all love to make $1 million, but I don't know how. Could I quit real estate and do it? Um, I have a family to care for. Starting something new, you think about all these things. But then I also think about where my life would be in 5 years. What would be amazing for you in 5 years? If you think right now through this pandemic, just stop, slow down, and think about this. In 5 years, how much money would you like to be making? What would you like to look at in the mirror? Who would you want to be with? Who do you want to surround yourself with? What kind of house would you live in? Would you live on the ocean? Would you live in the mountains? What kind of car would you be driving? Would you have a personal chef? Would you have a personal trainer? Would you pick up your kids from school? What is your compelling future? If you're home and you have time right now, I dare you to take out a piece of paper and just think about, once we get through all this, do you want your life to look different? I want you to visualize it. I want you to feel it. So that really works for me, is to really just sit down, think what in 5 years it could be like. And if you look back 5 years, has your life improved? Has it not? So if you're not making the money you want, could you start a business right now? This is where, in recessions like this is where millionaires are created, with new ideas. So you can either sit back and wait for it to get better, or you can start a business maybe you've always thought of, or something that you're passionate about. You can look back also in 5 years and say, man, at that time, so now you're 5 years out, you can say, my relationships aren't thriving. I'm not in great shape. In fact, I put on 10 pounds because of the stress I had in my life. You can't attend your kids' school things. None of it happened. How would you feel then? How would your confidence be? Can you give back and contribute? Can you make an impact on the world? Or are you just going to keep complaining and blaming? What is the but that is holding you back and stopping you? We're all created and made super special. So my message today is, don't let self-doubt win anymore. Don't let self-doubt run you. So I've had, like I said, amazing 4-hour training, and that was what most impacted me the most, is starting to put a 5-year. I have done this already. I'm going to look back at it. I actually did it a couple months ago, and so now to reread it and read it every day, where I'm going in 5 years. Because if you only think of where you're going in 5 years, it will motivate you, it will move you. This pandemic right now is happening. We shouldn't annoy it or ignore it. But it's also a great time to find out what motivates you, what moves you, and it can really step you into action. So my message for today, happy Saturday. May you all be having a great rainy day wherever you are. And stay positive, stay strong, and I'm going to see you tomorrow.